I was not ready to be a priest. I'm a little bit afraid of myself. No human being will agree with death. But then I went to the military service.
You were not at war, though, right? What is leading a good life?
Be yourself, no matter what they say. No one believes that. Everything is forbidden for Catholics.
What would you say is the purpose of the human life?
We're free to do anything. But we should remember that this anything will stay with us.
Father Valentin, thank you for joining me. Delighted to see you. Your name sounds so beautiful in Russian, but even more beautiful in English.
Better say Father Valentin.
Valentin.
Valentine is too often associated
with the holiday.
Yes.
I understand.
This episode is fueled by Enigma Coffee, a ritual, a reminder, a first step in your daily routine towards a more realized, fulfilled, and happy life. Drink Enigma Coffee, expand, enjoy, evolve.
I see that you drink coffee.
From time to time.
You
mostly I prefer tea.
That's so you do not have an obligation with your position to not. What are the obligations that you do have? I know that you're married and you have 2 kids. So, and I know. Look, I'm talking about this because, of course, people will be watching us all over the world, and not everybody understands Orthodox Christianity, as me and you, perhaps you mostly, obviously, understand it. So. People might not know what your position allows and does not allow.
Well, I'm a priest of the Orthodox Church, which is different from 2 major Christian denominations. In simple words, we can put it like that, everything is forbidden for Catholics, and everything is allowed for Protestants. In a sort of like a simplified way. So we're in between, we represent this via media. Some things are forbidden, some things are allowed. But the most important is to be a good Christian, When I was ordained, a priest who was already a priest for a long time, for some time, he said that you should be a good Christian, first of all. People will detect that if you are not. Just be a good Christian.
And becoming a priest, was it something that you always had in mind for yourself? Because I know that your first education was non-religious. You graduated from a university in Tver, which is very close to Moscow, where we are sitting right now, in fact. And you graduated with a degree in philology.
Well, we didn't have degrees at that time. Well, my background was fairly traditional. I'm a PK. PK is a priest kid.
Okay.
And my father was a really good priest, a strong personality. So I had this traditional background, which was fairly rare at that time. But then I went to the university. And my father insisted that I had to have a secular education first.
Why was his belief that that's how it should be?
Somehow he referred to the example of the ancient fathers. It was traditional.
It's not the worst example that one can give.
But it was a risky way. Because I went to study philology, English philology and literature, which I enjoyed, which I loved and love still now. And after that, I was not ready to be a priest. And that was, of course, his evident or not so evident intention.
What were your aspirations at that time? What did you want
Just
to do?
to study English literature. I enjoyed it. And I enjoy it. So
Did you read Shakespeare in its original?
Yes.
So did I, actually.
Yes. Yes. It was not an easy reading.
Definitely not.
Yes, but I read. But then I went to the military service. It was obligatory at that time, as you know.
How was that experience for you?
Oh, that was quite an experience. And there in the army, I decided that I'll be a priest.
What made you make that? What were the circumstances or thoughts?
Nothing special, terrible. Nothing special. One had to see to front difficulties, communication with different people.
You were not at war, though, right? So...
No. There were some circumstances, but not that. But after that, I decided that I'll be a priest,
But what was, many people, so many people, every young Russian man goes to the army, but obviously not everybody decides to become a priest after that. Was it a consideration that your father wanted you to do it, or what? It's a pretty big decision, obviously, because your life in the church versus outside of the church is two completely different lives.
I will not agree. I want to agree with you that every man goes to the army. A youngster goes to the army, and he returns a man. That's it. Just facing the reality. Just facing the reality is enough to see that you have to spend your life on something worth of it.
What reality did you see?
Just difficult life. Just difficult life when you do not belong to yourself.
Oh, you mean like the discipline?
Yes. Nothing special, terrible. But just it was my first encounter with real life, and it led me to the conclusion that I never had the pity about afterwards.
You know that, I'm sure you know, a lot of people have the criticism of any church, really, but the Orthodox Christianity included, is that, there's even a saying, they say, the teaching of Christ became the teaching about Christ. And the institution of the church and religion itself is not always the same thing. So for you, what's your experience? Extensive life within the church, you greatly rewarded, and your career is successful. What's your experience with religion versus the institute of the church?
Well, I understand what you're talking about, and I understand that these accusations are in many ways true. But I would say that Orthodox Christianity is really about Christ, if understood and implemented in life correctly. It's about Christ. The most important in Orthodox Christianity is the idea of sacraments. Eucharist and other sacraments, first of all, Eucharist, uniting with Christ. I will not burden you with theological, complications and so on.
I've read your textbook. You can.
Oh, really? But the most important is the idea of sacraments. Just be united with Christ. That's the most important. Other Christians would say, well, I do not want to blame other Christians, but I feel pity about the historical tragedies. The idea of power, domination can be really important in Christianity. And that leads to what you said, that the most important is not Christ, but someone who represents Christ.
But even
I say it politely, without naming anyone.
We'll get to that. Don't worry, we'll get to that. But even in your case, you have a successful career within the Orthodox Church. Undoubtedly, you are a great educator. You are you're a professor.
I'm a little bit afraid of myself.
You look absolutely harmless to me and rather nice. But, you are with Moscow Patriarchy. You became the abbots of the Church of Saint Vladimir, which is actually one of the oldest Orthodox shrine. Director. Director.
I'm not the rector.
The rector, yes.
I'm not a monk. I cannot be an abbot.
Apologies. That's the technicality
my wife, my mother, can be angry about that if she hears.
The balance between a career, the word that usually we don't, really hear in connection to the church, but obviously those are careers, and the humbleness of the serving to the Christ. Where is that balance? And how do you personally address that?
May I still return to your previous question? So the most important is, this union with Christ. And what stands next is the community of people. This is, according to the words of the Lord, about those who are gathered in 2 or 3 in His name, He is amidst them. This idea of sacraments and community of people in the sacraments. These are 2 leading ideas for the Orthodox Christianity, which I think are really about Christ, not about Christ, but really lead to Christ.
But some would also say that also there is a very personal connection. You said communal, of course, but the very personal individual connection with Christ in Orthodox Christianity versus, let's say, Catholicism, which is
I never blamed our big brothers.
Why do you call them the big brothers? Because there are more of them?
Of course.
Because they come from the same source at the same time.
Yes.
They're almost twins.
Yes.
That's separated.
Yes. It's personal. But, a person is lonely in this world too often. And you can judge yourself what is easier for a person to go to Christ by himself or herself, or to go together. The community. It's easier to be in Christ together. So. And what about career? I don't know.
But how do you relate to your own life? I don't know, when you're awarded or I don't know. Promoted sounds not a very religious term, but how do you relate to that part? Because it can be also an important part because you are leading a community.
It's a ministry which is given to me to fulfill it. It doesn't make me a different person. It doesn't make me a religious superman or whatever. I'm the same person. The church gives me this ministry. I have to fulfill it. I have to serve it as good as I can. That's it. It's not mine. I'm just given to do that.
But that's
if I feel that it's mine, well, then I have something to think about.
And some people do, I'm sure. feel that and have
Of
something
course,
to think about.
there is an inevitable temptation about that, to think that it's something mine. I remember also an old priest corrected another priest who said, "My parish." Never say "my parish." It's not yours. So, I don't know.
Death is a very touchy subject for people in general.
What do you say?
Death.
Death, yes.
For people generally, because in our life it's a very curious thing where we try to pretend throughout the whole life that it doesn't exist, that it will never come, and then it comes, and we're very surprised that it has arrived. God forbid when someone close to us passes, or our own definitive end. How do you approach the question of death?
No, well, my conviction, just my belief, my experience is that no human being will agree with death. No one will agree with the fact that, this huge universe, which is inside of every person, that it just vanishes. No one will agree with that. Even people who do not believe in God, they will not agree with death. They will try to overcome that reality. In the Soviet time, the idea of sacrifice for the future was very popular. It was in mass media, whatever, just lots of movies, books about that. What was behind of that? Understanding that, yes, we'll die, but someone who will live, and we agreed to die for someone to live. It was not the cult of death, but sacrifice for the life of of future generations, whatever. Say, for communists, whatever. But for something that people thought would be worth of their death. So, if Christ has not risen, our faith is nothing. Sorry, I do not cite it close. These are the words of the apostle. I do not cite it close to the text, but this is the idea. The most important in Christianity, in Christ, is his resurrection. Our belief that we will follow him. The most important feast in the Orthodox tradition is Easter. This feast of resurrection, a risky feast, because we do not know what will happen afterwards. But we cannot live without that belief. We cannot live in a different way. And those who agree that people are dying without nothing, they are really courageous, but really unhappy people. So we are maybe not that courageous, but we are more happy.
What is the true happiness, would you say?
To be with God and with his people.
But when you say to be with God, what does it actually mean?
It's something personal. It's something personal. You cannot understand God. And it's, the most important things in our life, they're rational. We do not understand, we feel. We understand a lot, of course, but what really makes our life are feelings.
I've heard you say, actually, the sense of faith. Which
yes,
I think
sensus fide.
Which
Great
I think
words.
is an amazing
great words.
Way to...
Yes.
And I think very much attributed specifically to the Orthodox Christianity.
Yes. It's something personal. If you feel God, then you're happy. And this happiness, it is spread on those who are around you. You feel... I remember in the seminary, this was a very touching experience. I was really happy to be in the church. Was really happy to be in the library. Well, and somehow it gave, this idea of happiness. And happiness is not something as we usually maybe representing something, striking, like whatever. Something
it's different from excitement.
Yes.
People confuse it sometimes, I think.
Yes, but it's something more serene, you see. So,
peaceful, yeah.
Peaceful.
I know that in 90 to 92, you've actually studied in U.S. You've studied in the seminary there. How did you? And thus your English is also so good. I'm sure that you had.
I'm out of practice. It used to be better.
But how did you end up there?
Well, first of all, I knew the English language. I had
you already read Shakespeare by then in its original, so yes.
Yes, so it helped a lot. And then the late Father John Meindorf, who was the rector or the dean of St. Vladimir's Seminary. He was a great scholar, really well known in the Orthodox world, specialist in patristics and church history. Mm-hmm. There is a story about him that one priest saw him at some ecumenical gathering. And at that time, people would be placed under the names of countries that they are presumed to be from. So he was at that time in the Patriarch of Constantinople, which is in Istanbul. So above him was the name Turkey. And this priest thought to himself, listen, this is a German, actually he's from Baltic Germans. This is a German who is born in France, considers himself Russian, and now, sits under the title of Turkey. He was like my, academical father, my doctor father. So he was really an outstanding person. And at that time, when the freedom to move across borders was only appearing, he decided that he must bring some students just to teach them, to not even to teach, but to give them this, heritage which he represented. So he came to St. Petersburg, Leningrad at that time, asked to the rector of our seminary, late Father Vladimir Sorokin, to give him a couple of students who can study there. He looked who knows the language. So I happened to be there. There was another student with me. He became a bishop. He's late now. So, but at that time we were young, happy.
How was your experience there? It was the first time you left Russia, right?
Yes, actually, yes. Well, we were young and happy. And, this feeling that the whole world is just ahead of you, in front of you, is really exciting. and this was, of course, well, something which should be when a person is young, to see the world. It is really important. You see, like, the reality of that world. You will not believe afterwards what people write or sing or present this world. You see it as it is. And I should say that America of the 90s, well, I have to say that it was still good old America. Agree
that people
or not?
now want to return to that.
Yes. It was, for me, I understand that America is really very different, but still, we are in that part of America who is still righteous, who really represented the spirit which created America. It was really something convincing, really exciting. So I enjoyed that time.
What was the purpose of having a Russian Orthodox seminary school there?
There is a history behind of that. These Russian immigrants, church people, a lot of them, after the revolution, they had to understand what is all that about and what is all that for. So they decided that if that happened, then they had to present, to witness their faith, their Orthodox Christian faith, to Western Christians. They tried in Europe, somehow it didn't work. So they decided to go further, at least.
The idea was to convert, I'm assuming, right?
Not even to convert, but to witness. So part of them went further to the West, and they went to America. Father George Florovsky, Father Alexander Schmemann, Father John Meyendorff among them. And they tried to witness this faith to Americans. They really insisted that this should be an American enterprise, not just a Russian folk church, whatever. No. And I must say that it worked, because, say, like at least half of priests, well, mostly like priests, Orthodox priests are Americans. At least half of them, more than half. Staunch Americans, WASPs, whoever. Yes, and they become Orthodox, and they're happy with that. So this was a part of their witness.
I read that you said once in your memories of Father John that he represented the Holy Rus, which I'm assuming, but you'll correct me obviously, the old tradition, which somehow was unique or different from anything else.
This term is very speaking, Holy Rus. The first is to be holy, and Rus is second. He represented Holy Orthodox Christianity as it was, understood and implemented by Russians. That's it.
But what was unique about that? Because from what I read, again, correct me if I didn't understand your sort of passion of it correctly, but it felt to me that there was something very unique that you felt in him or what he represented at that time.
Coming to that history, to that story that I spoke about, he was deeply Russian, but at the same time, he was open to the whole world. He understood that to be Russian is of secondary importance. And the most important is to be holy, to be a real Christian. He was really open-minded to different people, to whoever. He was very deep scientist, very good academical scholar with knowledge of theology, languages, but at the same time, he was really a priest, a pastor, someone who accepts people, attracts them, loves them. And what about Holy Rus? It's the same as with the priest. It's a heritage which is given to this nation, then to this nation, and to some...
But what that heritage represents, what are the points? If someone hears the term, what are they expected to imagine when they hear that?
It is well represented in Russian literature. If you see, people from that time as they live on the pages of novels and so on, you see that they are, at least they try to be real Christians. It doesn't mean that, it's not ours. It's not ours. It is given to us. And we do as long as we can. Then we're getting tired. It is given to someone else. So
what I'm hearing from you is that that we as humans sometimes make the attribution of that being mine a little too personal, and it's taken from us often if we become too possessive of whatever we think belongs to us.
Possessive is the correct term. Personal is good. Yeah. If we think, if we become too possessive, it can be taken from a priest, from a person, from a nation. It can be taken. Our history is the set proof of that.
But the history of Russia, would you agree, is a phenomenal history of a country that has, I don't remember, I think Churchill said it, but I might be deeply paraphrasing, so I don't want to quote him, said that there hasn't been 10 years, a decade, in the life of Russia that has not suffered some sort of great tragedy. It's always something going on, and yet it's still there with something that is core, almost a DNA of what it is to be Russian and the DNA of the Orthodox Church. And by the way, following on that, there is a wave of people that are, first there is actually a wave of people starting to young people believing believers, the Christians. But there is another wave of people turning to Orthodox Christianity in the West as a more, as they call it, a more pure version of Christianity.
You mean the West?
The West, yes. People in the West become more and more interested in Orthodox Christianity as a more pure version of Christianity.
So coming back to what you said about this idea of Holy Rus, people lived, Russian life or even civilization, say in the last centuries before the revolution, was deeply religious. You cannot, these famous words of Dostoevsky, who knew his nation and knew it really well, said that if you take away the idea of Christ from Russians, there will be just a complete darkness and so on. So it was really religious, in its intention, in its life. You can read like Shmilov, Zaitsev, this faith, it penetrates the life. It is everywhere there. It is like felt and it is lived not fulfilled, not whatever, but it's something deep. Well, what about Orthodox Christianity? Yes, our big brothers.
We know you mean the Catholics.
Yes, and Protestants. More
than the Catholics.
No, they're in the middle. The most numerous are Catholics, then Protestants, then the small flock, which is not afraid of everything. That's we. It's the most ancient, the most authentic Christianity. It really represents the experience of the first millennium of Christianity, which is a forming time, Everything good and bad, good came out of attempt to continue it, and bad came out of denial of that heritage.
But it seems that the closer you are to the source,
Yes.
the more authentic it's going to be. The further away you go, the more you lose.
Yes. So ancient, we're ancient in that time, and it's really our advantage. It's our mission. It's what is given to us to keep, to continue it.
Why would you say it happened like that? Because obviously, Catholicism had so many developments, and of course, Reformation, and coming of Protestants and everything else that came with the Reform. But Orthodox Christianity, I would completely agree with you. Rightly said, preserved itself so well. Is it, the historic circumstances, or why did they develop so differently?
First of all, what we should have in mind about Orthodox Christianity is the way Christians from the West look at us. The most important in the Orthodox tradition is its spirituality, whatever it means. We have great theologians, we have whatever. But what is really just, sometimes I have a feeling that they know our spirituality better than we do. They know, we live. It is, it goes to what we spoke about. It represents, personal, religious. It represents the feeling of a person. You cannot describe it, as you cannot describe God. But it's something, it's really the most important in life.
Do you also, when you talk about Orthodox spirituality, do you also mean the mystics, the Orthodox mystics?
We never had special mystics.
What do you mean special?
Mystics, mystical tradition, something separate, and just people who are really specialized in that. No, we don't have that.
What I mean,
we have
like the
mystical experience, but we do not have mysticism.
I don't mean I don't mean mysticism. I mean the mystical experience, and people, the monks living.
Yes. These simple monks, and they were so great in their being Christians, that sophisticated people with education, position, would come and talk to them and find it's really important for them, If we go back why it happened, I might be wrong, but as far as I understand it, it's really curious and convincing history. The best to be Christians were Greeks. The first century and afterwards, many ways, was Greek. Who were Greeks? They were the smartest people of that time. Philosophy, whatever, culture.
Undeniably, of course.
Yes. They were the smartest, the most clever at that time. So they became good Christians.
So you connecting The smartness or the
No. And what happened after that? They understood. They were able to understand with their intellectual heritage. They were able to understand, as the smartest people of that time, that it's not about mind. And it was really convincing experience because, say, St. Gregory of Palamas, the 14th century, the one who was the lead of spiritual movement of so-called hesychasts, those who practiced this silence about the Lord. At the age of 18-something, he was allowed to speak before the emperor, but something about Aristotle. Just imagine, he was really a great intellectual of his time. And with all that heritage, having all that in mind, he understands that's not about the mind. So it went from this, intellectual might to understand that it's not intellectual. And then it went to spirituality. It's more like that.
I'm not taking a jab at Catholic Church, but it seems to me that the Catholic Church is very much about the more of a mind understanding of Christian religion, more of a it's just the institution of the Church. I read in your textbook on comparative theology, which
I was too young when I wrote it.
I have to say, this is an amazing book because it's such a simple...
It's small.
It's small. But it's...
Yeah, students like it because it's small.
I sounded way better when I said I read your book. Well, now you said it's small. What I really enjoyed, how simple, in what simple terms you describe everything, and it makes total sense. But what I'm referring to with the Catholics, the Institute of the Church that has a pope was always a curious thing to me. I believe in the textbook, said that the difference is that the Catholics have a pope that they refer to as the main, well, let's put it in quotes.
Sometimes even as the Lord.
Viceroy, yes, of Christianity. But in Orthodox Christianity, even though there is a patriarch, but the head of the church is Christ.
Yes.
And that was a fascinating, I always felt it, but it was a fascinating discovery because you put it in such a simple term, but it makes total sense.
I have to rewrite the book and make it a little bit thicker. The temptation of the people, of all the people, Orthodox, Catholics, Protestants, at least of all Christians, is to create someone who is like instead of God. The first commandment is about that. Do not create this.
Yes,
in a parish, people will look at you like as if, everything, you somehow communicate with God himself, yes, like someone from above. It's a false way.
But is it something that comes from the people? Meaning,
it comes from the people. They want that. They want that. They want someone to ask. The way to the Lord is too long. You have to pray.
I thought the closest way is the most direct.
Not always, and it's
not
easy
for everybody.
Not for everyone. Yeah, it's easy to have a priest who is instead of the Lord, and so on, and so on. And it's huge temptation both for people and for priests.
Would you say it's because of the fear of facing God yourself? You kind of need courage because nobody want to face their inner demons.
Maybe, but maybe I would say it's because, people want divine to be represented here.
You're almost saying that they want a divine to be a little less divine.
Somehow, let it be less divine, but let it be here.
Because when it's here, by definition, it's less divine.
Yes. So this is, comes to the problem of faith. To believe faith is difficult. Too often we replace faith by tradition, by custom, But to believe in God, it's really difficult. I believe the Lord. Help my weakness of faith, These are the words from the gospel. So, and people want to make this faith a little bit more easier. Let's have someone who represents him, And on a wider level, this would lead to a pope. And Catholics themselves, they understand that it's too much about, this deification of popes and so on and so on and so on.
But even on a more practical level, I always think the Pope, Dalai Lama, it's almost impossible that God would act specifically in this recurring individuals consistently and touch them with their grace so consistently one after another. It feels like it's forced, but why is it not obvious? I mean, it seems so obvious to me that how can we know what quote unquote God is thinking over there, and how do we know that the Pope is the one that he touched with his grace more than the others?
Well, you always choose the honest way and the easy way. And too often people would prefer the easy way, And of course, if there is a tradition by centuries, the great church, which is really a great church, agreed that this one is the vicar of Christ, that this one represents him in a way that is impossible for every human being. So somehow people would start with that because it's in pious tradition and it's easier.
We touched upon the Russian...
Kudjava expressed it, I say it in Russian, «Мне нужно на кого-нибудь молиться». I need someone to pray. Of course, the best way is to pray to the Lord. But we prefer to have someone here.
Almost creating an idol is too tempting.
That was the term that I tried to evade.
Why?
Not to
offend anybody.
Yes.
But so it's asking for itself in a way. We touched upon the Russian Revolution of 1917, which to me is a very, very interesting event in relation to the Orthodox Church. And you wrote about it. And again, that's been always very curious to me, how quickly it's been 80 years of no God, quote unquote, arguably, very arguably, because, people believed and, quietly, there were some churches that were still operating. But generally speaking, the country lost God, turned off the lights of God and decided and closed the door.
Turned off, but not lost.
But turned off, but not lost, exactly. But what was very interesting to me is how quickly God came back into the life of Russian people, again, almost as turning the switch back on. What happened there with the Russian Revolution? And I remember you called it a very sad experiment of a society that does not have God.
Well, we cannot erase spiritual DNK. It's really in the people. And as soon as it was possible, they just returned. But the Soviet time was crypto-religious in many ways, even, I would say, in bad ways, like Marx, Lenin, and Engels just taking place of Christian Trinity and so on. Well, a lot is written about that.
Oh, you mean the symbolism of the Trinity?
Yes. First of all, there were two Soviet Unions. One pre-war. Well,
you mean
the first was
pre-1945?
Yeah, was actually was the Stalin times, and after that, and these were different in a deeply religious sense. You can see that in poetry. Yesenin, really
one of the greatest Russian poets.
Greatest, he really expressed what was in the minds and in the souls of people. И молиться не учи, не надо. You see? He expressed what he felt. Do not teach me to pray. No way to that. These were 20s. And after that, the same Okudjava. Мне нужно на кого-нибудь молиться. I need to pray. So this difference was religious in many ways. The Second World War, the Great Patriotic War for Russians, was really that ordeal, that, critical experience which made way to this DNK,
Well, isn't it always we, in the most critical and most life-threatening circumstances, we turn to God?
By suffering, unfortunately. Unfortunately. But, this, like in Snow Queen, Anderson wanted to feel pain, to come to himself, to come to mind. Unfortunately. This is like, this was huge pain for the nation, which led it back, to this revival of spiritual Christian roots. And then after that, the understanding of spiritual roots was in progress, slowly. But, of course, in the 90s, it was because of the disappointment in the past. The former ideals or idols, whatever you call them, they're fallen. And people needed something to believe. But don't forget that, the DNK, this matrix of the Soviet people was really Christian. And speaking frankly, like, the idea of communism, it was, well, it's evident, people know that it was an attempt to create the kingdom of God without God. It didn't work. But at least, well, there was nothing bad in that. nothing to kill so many people for, speaking frankly. You see. So, when God was allowed to come back, the puzzle
clicked back in its place.
Yes, somehow I would see it like that. The parish that I serve in now, these are really, well, they are 50 plus, all of them. And I see them, they're really just perfect people, and all of them are really Soviet people who lived their life in the Soviet Union. And then they went back and the puzzle clicked.
Do you see what's the situation with young people and religion in Russia? Because in US, Christianity is having a new life. People, a lot of new people, especially influencers, because obviously they influence a lot of others, speak about it very openly. There was a time when it was not very cool to be religious, and now it's, forgive me, but for a lack of a better word, is back in fashion. People.
I heard about that. It's really inspiring.
It's very true, and that's why I said some of those people are looking for the Orthodox Christianity as sort of an alternative to a Catholic or a Protestant or any other. What's the situation in Russia with the younger people?
I would be very cautious about that, but it seems that something. We had this generation of former Soviet people who went to the church and stayed there, and they did a tremendous job. They just did whatever we have now. Then there was like a gap.
What years are you referring to?
Maybe last 10, 15 years, something. But now I have a very cautious feeling, but still, I would say that it comes again. Not in big proportions, not too much of them, but it still comes. It still comes. And really young people, it's not that all of them went to Sunday schools and so on. No. But somehow this is an independent interest. Well, I feel I'm really cautious about that.
I just thought about it. It's almost more difficult to track because when you have an institution that everybody go to, then it's very noticeable. Yeah. But when, as we spoke before, the relationship is much more personal, there are probably a lot of people, I would think, who do not even go to the church that often. But it doesn't mean that they do not believe.
Yes, we have them, so-called anonymous Christians. But we still have people in the churches. Well, I mean, young people. Not as many as we would like, but still. And they come, I would say, not always because of our efforts. Somehow they are brought by the Lord.
That is the best effort.
Yes.
There is also something...
We should not be an obstacle to that, speaking frankly.
Yes. What wise words you're saying. There's also, I don't know if it exists in US or in Europe, but there is something that there is here in Russia, which was curious to me. You have the seminaries.
Yes.
But you also have Orthodox universities. No, actually, now remembering, of course, in US, in LA itself, there is Loyola Marymount, which is Christian university, but the reason I forgot about it because there is really not much reference to the Christianity within the university, which I'm expecting is not exactly the case with the Orthodox universities here. I would imagine there is more a notice of religion here. Is that true?
We have this attempt. Not too many institutions, maybe several of them, more or less established, which is St. Tikhon's Orthodox University of Humanities.
That you teach at.
Yes, I teach at. It was an attempt to witness Christian orthodoxy to modern culture.
You mean the adaptability, or the?
Just to bring the values, just to tell them that there is Orthodox Christianity and what is about and so on. Somehow we have the reverse attempt, I would say, from modern culture, which tries to bring its values maybe not in the Orthodox Church, but in this sphere of education. Well, I hope we'll stay.
What exactly
Christians.
You're referring to when you say the modern culture is bringing its values?
Well, still we have people who are different in their attitude towards Christianity in general and Orthodox Christianity in particular. Somehow, I'm afraid that we can lose our values. What you said, that we can, well, it's not the way, but it's a threat that Christianity is not too much referred to. There is such a threat. It's only a threat, nothing more. But still, we have to be cautious about that.
Well, it seems that speaking of modern culture and Christianity within modern culture, it seems that, let's say, Catholicism and Protestantism adapted pretty well to the modern world, but yet it seems even from our discussion, it seems that it didn't necessarily benefit them, where Orthodox Christianity almost conserved itself without being in touch with the modern culture as it went from century to century, but at the same time preserved itself in its pure form in a very surprising way. Instead of wanting to be liked by the world, it just quietly stays within itself, waiting for the world to come to it.
Be yourself, no matter what they say. Yes, Western Christianity, well, it is clearly seen in the history of our Catholic brothers. First, they tried to be in a position of a besieged fortress, as they call it. After that came so-called aggiornamento, trying an attempt to adapt Christianity to not the values, but maybe to the life of the world. It did not benefit them, as you see. You know, one should have a courage to be different, to be not like the others. It's a difficult experience. Sometimes it's painful, but it's worth. If, you know, like many Americans who came to Orthodoxy, they say the same things. I saw something different. It was interesting. I went to see what is all that about. I found nothing bad, but a lot of good. I became Orthodox. To see, as one Russian poet said, лица не общее выражение, non-common expression of your face. To be different. Don't be afraid to be different from the others.
I think it's deeply connected to the DNA of
Yes,
Russia itself.
Yes. And Christ, not in Russia, Christ himself, he was way different. Way different. He paid a lot. He paid
For that difference, yeah.
Yes, you can face this perspective too, but it's worth just to be yourself, be Christian. It's not that we are so good. It's just because we're given that. That's it, and we have to. It's not ours.
I have a difficult time with evil, personally. I always address the subject of evil because, to me, it seems how is it possible that that evil even exists in the world? And then I stumbled upon the words of Luther, which completely shocked me, but personally, I kind of found truth in that. He says, again, I'm paraphrasing, but he says, a man is like a horse. If God rides it, then it's good. If devil rides it,
yes.
then it serves the devil. What do you think about that?
Luther was a sincere Christian. He tried to do what he felt true in his time. But the way they went, it was not the best way, speaking frankly.
They kind of went extreme.
Yes, these are two extremes. I also speak about something which refers not to Catholics or Protestants, but to Christians in general. Someone comes to the church. He or she tries to a person comes to the church and sees the evil in himself or herself. What happens after? A person tries to resist that. Does she or he succeed in that? No way. Because no one can overcome himself or herself. People can overcome other people, but they cannot overcome themselves. Only the Lord can do that. In previous history, Catholics, they tried to overcome this evil by their own efforts. There was the whole system, of all that. Then everyone was sort of tired about that. They understood that it was all in vain. And Luther comes and he says, no, it's not we, it's only the Lord who can overcome. But, we are in between. Of course, we always have to have in mind that only the Lord can overcome the evil in himself or herself, but only with a free agreement of a person. We're not horses.
Free will.
Free will, yes. We are not horses. We're human beings. We're given freedom.
Which Dostoevsky said that we're trying to get rid of as quickly as possible, right? The famous Dostoevsky quote.
Yes. It's painful. It's easier, to submit and do nothing. No, we are given free will, and we have to make a choice. And we have to bear responsibility of this choice. We're not horses.
In our conversation, you already said in different words that you cannot, to come to the truth, you have to go through the suffering. There is no sort of short way. And ironically enough, in contemporary life, all we're trying to do is run away from the suffering.
Yes. You know, this. If you see these happy faces, like from posters in the streets, everyone is happy. Just, you know, no one believes that. No one believes that. And Christianity is the way to accept and to be in these sufferings with the Lord. If I speak about myself, I went through some experience of not sufferings, but a difficult life in the army. It had really positive religious influence on my life. You know, we cannot. No one can live. We cannot avoid them. We can't escape that. You know, and the truth and courage of Christianity is that we agree with that and we accept that, but we know that after that will be the resurrection, the life where no sufferings, no illness, nothing. It's like before the land. It's like the land. You know, it precedes the Easter, the time of restriction of some sort of sufferings, you know, with understanding that eventually there will be the resurrection of Christ.
What would you say is the purpose of the human life?
Wow. To live eternally.
But isn't that what's given, being part of God? But that's the eternal life. But what about this physical life?
Yes. It has direct reference with the eternity. Very simply. If you know that everything that you did or even thought would stay with you forever, how cautious all of us would be with what we do or even think. It's a great hope, but it's a huge responsibility. Just to imagine that all dirt which is in our life, it stays with us. Wow.
You know, there's a beautiful illustration to that. What you're saying that I've just realized recently rereading. I love Master and Margarita by Bulgakov.
Great book.
I've reread it multiple times, and different things obviously you discover as you read again and again. And this last time is exactly what you're talking about. I couldn't understand why Pontius Pilatus is sitting with a dog in his empty hole. And, you know, when they fly over, they think Margaret asks, why is he sitting like this? And it's exactly, that's what's stayed with him. And that's what he is in. And then, you know, he's released and, you know, reunited with Joshua.
Yeah.
And it hit me at just one point that's what it is about. It stays with you.
It stays. It's your judge. Well, mine too, you know.
So almost when they say you are your own judge,
yes,
is referring to that.
Yes, what is inside is enough. You know, this the sacrament of confession is like the way to free oneself from the past.
But can you free yourself from the past, or it stays with you?
We cannot, but the Lord gives us. And it's, people are feeling much better when they just feel that at least a part of that is not with them.
So coming back to my question, what would you say the purpose, meaning of this life? Why do we enter it? Because some people, there are people who suffer or, regret not taking one path versus taking the other path, doing, I don't know, being a doctor versus being an architect in life, or marrying this person versus marrying someone else. There's a lot of that regret when people feel that they've lived their life not how they were, quote unquote, supposed to. But then in the great scheme of things, it almost seems that it's completely irrelevant. So which one is it? Is it important to sort of fulfill? Do you have some sort of purpose that you need to fulfill, or you can do anything as long as you, again, my phrasing be, pass those tests of life?
We're free to do anything, but we should remember that this anything will stay with us. Just to live this life so that one would be worthy of eternal life. That's it, And to live with this life, with the Lord. Let your will be done. Thy will be done.
But almost, you see, there is a difference.
Sometimes just, I remember I wanted this or that from the Lord. Years passed. I'm so happy that it didn't happen.
Yes, we all have those.
Yes. So live with the Lord. He knows better. Though, just from an external point of view, the life of a person can be complete failure, whatever. But you do not know his or her feelings. Maybe he's
happy.
Yes. Without obvious success and so on.
Coming back to sort of a more technical understanding of the fall of man, the original sin. Sort of different religious schools kind of, presented in a different way, where by falling from the grace of God, it's some sort in some way sort of polluted our nature, and therefore we are, if you will, are forever wounded by that generation after generation, because it is embedded in us with birth. Where other schools of thought say that no, we're part of God, and therefore, yes, it's almost, again, I'm paraphrasing and putting it in simple terms, almost like just an obstacle that you're born with, but or a mark, if you will, but it's not it's not a permanent damage, so to speak.
No, like predestinated to.
Yes.
Listen, let's start with looking at the first people, Adam and Eve. Are we better than them? This sin, the evil, it lives just because we, like them, we make our choices. It's not that they did something and we suffer after them because they did it. No, we do that ourselves too often, each one for himself. So, and thus, we allow the evil to exist.
But you said
to
yourself,
continue.
which I agree with, but you said yourself, you cannot resist the evil within you. So what can you do?
Go to the Lord. Go to the Lord.
So when someone feels...
Yes, try him to free you from this and that. Ask him to free you. That's it. That's it.
So at any point in time, coming back to the free will and, of choosing evil versus being the horse in Luther's words. So at any given moment, we can make that choice.
At any given moment. Choice to the bad, we do ourselves. Choice to the good, it's better to do with the Lord. We continue the evil. We choose it. It exists only because we are ready to accept it.
But we also
it does not exist without. Yes.
We define what is good and what is evil, and sometimes those terms are very confused. Interchanged. What is good is called evil. What is evil is called good. How do you...
Theoretically, yes, but I tell you, I spent years listening to the confessions of the people. Everyone understands perfectly well what is good, what is bad about himself or herself. Not maybe in some about other people, about some, just events or that, but what refers to personal life, everyone understands it perfectly well. They would not maybe agree to admit it, but they know it. Everyone knows.
What is the practice of Holy Communion, which is so different in Orthodox Christianity versus the other? I feel bad calling Catholicism so many times in 1 hour, but let's say with other Christian denominations, what is so unique about it in Orthodoxy?
We just follow the tradition of the ancient church. We do not change it. Well, there are thoughts that something can be changed, but so far we just follow the tradition of the ancient church as it used to be in thousands of years. We do not change. And it's really important if you do not change, Change is not always good.
For someone who is not a believer at all, atheist I'm referring to, if they'd ask you what is faith, what'd be your response?
Sensus fide. It's a feeling. It's a feeling. I remember in Lewis, Me Christianity, he gives the history of an officer who felt the Lord somewhere in the desert, and that stays with him. He felt the Lord. And I would think that every person is given this feeling. Whether the person, give a response to that, it depends on the person. But the Lord, at least I would think, the Lord touches every human being, at least once in life, just to feel that He is.
People even talk about, literally I got a comment yesterday about something unrelated, but someone said, I had an experience where God spoke with me. He said that I heard the voice.
Well, we are a little bit cautious about the voices.
Yes, I know. Especially with everything available to, to people in this world.
Yes, it's something really mystical in the good sense of this term. It's something unexpressible, words are might be not too appropriate.
Well, words are very limiting,
Yes,
isn't it?
yes.
Because
It's the feeling. You cannot express your feelings. You cannot describe them. But you know that they exist.
it's
And
very true.
And it's the basic component of side of our life.
Would you say that eternal life is given to everybody, but salvation has to be earned?
Yes, I wouldn't like eternal life without salvation.
But as we
It's
just
like,
spoke,
yes, with Pilat.
of all the baggage that
Yes. We are doomed to live eternally. It is, well, at least for me as a Christian, it's inevitable.
But is it a sense that you have?
It's a hope that we all have. We do not agree. No one will agree with death. No one. The majority of people would not agree with death. And life eternal, it is, if we see what we want for life eternal, that would mean salvation. We want to be good eternal, to have a good life eternal, which is salvation. It's good for a person to be with the Lord. It's a great feeling.
Do humans have the ability to create, the co-creation with God in this life, in this world?
Listen, if you see at say Orthodox, at Christian, if you look at Christian culture, it comes back to ancient patterns in many, many ways. If you look at Orthodox theology, it is expressed in terms of philosophy of Neoplatonism. So the best what was in pre-Christian time is worth to serve Christian purpose, is worth to be in Christian time. Chesterton wrote about that there was a lot of good in pre-Christian time, which was an expectation. Well, at least it was it was the memory of the people that they all are the children of God. And they have this memory. They remember it without maybe understanding it. And it is expressed in good ways. So nothing bad.
Again, some people say, well, Christianity obviously came later. So what about those people who existed before the Christians? Or what about those who are not Christians at all, even now? How does the church solve that problem? But I'm more interested, how do you personally explain that?
Well, those who are given a lot, they will be asked for a lot.
My father used to tell me that all the time. It made me very annoyed.
Well, but that's true. And there are words of the apostle that those that non-Christians, they do good things by their nature. Естеством законное творят. They do good things by their nature, just because all of them are children of God. And he continues that they will have responsibility for what was in their nature and how they did that. There will be, the requirements are different for Christians, much more strict than from the others.
I know that in 2024, you've been awarded an ability to wear a cross with embellishments.
Yes.
I wanted to ask you, what is the symbolism of that? Meaning, what's the? It's a reward of what achievement?
May I give you a personal point of view? Usually, a priest is given 3 crosses. First one is white, so-called silver. It's not silver, of course. Second is yellow, so-called golden. It's not golden, of course. And the third one is, as you see, with embellishments. You know what? Each next one is heavier. Most likely is the first, the next one is heavier, this one is silver heavier. So
that's a reminder that
yes.
People come to you with, I'm sure, a multitude of different problems, sufferings, and how do you? I'm sure you're an empathic person. You feel the suffering of others. How do you separate yourself from it? What's the right approach to if someone is suffering close to you? Because some people, fall into the co-suffering. They suffer with them, which is not always effective. Others try to separate and stay as far away as possible. What's the right way?
We take the suffering of the people and give them to the Lord. Come to me, all those burdened and suffering. I'll give peace to you. That's it. We do as he said. A human being cannot co-suffer without self-destruction. Only with God. Just my purpose is to bring the suffering person to God. He'll help you.
But how do you bring someone to God?
First is to receive sacraments, to come to Eucharist. It doesn't mean that the life of a person will be better in this earthly meaning. That some will just have good health, whatever one needs. It doesn't mean that. But the life of a suffering person will be definitely easier. Maybe even better in the earthly understanding, but at least easier, which is a lot.
Well, if everything is the will of God, everything in this life,
we have our own will. We have our own will.
But events that happen to us throughout the day or in general, is it determined? Is it what's the relationship between free will and God's will for us in this life?
It depends. Sometimes we see that the Lord takes a person and makes him a different person, as Apostle Paul. But this is an exceptional way for the majority of human beings. We live by our own will. The problem is that the way we live, it's never our own life. It's the life of those who lived before us. We bring the advantages and the burdens of the past.
How do you
We
break
live.
that chain within yourself?
Only with the Lord, only with God. He can abolish it. So we live not our own past, but often, say, in history. We pay for the debts for those who were before us. But we live in the world which is much more, which is cozy, just because they did a lot. So we bear the good and the bad, which was before us.
If someone to ask, what is a good life? What is leading a good life? I don't mean good as successful. I mean good as good in the eyes of God.
Good life is the life that is worth to be in eternity, to be eternal.
The movie that you would want to rewatch when not a horror, not a thriller, when you are in eternity.
Solaris.
By Tarkovsky.
Yes. And the books that I was once asked to name 3 books. Of course, the Gospel. Then direct after that, Master and Margarita. To see the opposite version, to see how it happens in the opposite way. And then these unholy saints. Ni sveti, sveti.
Father, you have to promise me that we're going to have our next discussion about Master and Margaret.
Oh, are we going to have next discussion?
At some point, I very much hope to talk to you about that.
Just give me time to rewrite, to reread.
It's a worth reread.
It's a worth of that. And there are problems with the ending of the novel. Well, just give me time.
Sounds good. I thank you, Father.
Oh, no, it was really pleasant and really touching to talk to you, to see your interest towards what is interesting for me.
It was equally interesting for me. Thank you, Father.
Thank you. Thanks.
Cut.
Все.
Все? Спасибо большое.
Вам спасибо.
Но я нисколько не лукавила, когда просила вас в какой-то момент новой времени поговорить со мной о Мастере и Маргарите. Мне очень интересно.
Ну, только вы мне это
конечно.
Скажите.
Конечно. Ну, какой-то нет. Ну, не в этот раз, но вот какой-то из следующих.
Угу. Ладно. А что еще в следующий раз будет?
Вам было так плохо?
Нет, меня может не хватить на следующий.
Ну,